Our project is Reproductive Cloning by Aven Serpa,
Andrew Landeros,
Rahel Bachmann, and Maggie Mudge.
Our overall question is, to what extent is reproductive cloning considered ethical? What is the social impact of reproductive cloning? The first impact of reproductive cloning in society would be the division of households. Parents would view their cloned child as being their favorite. This would lead to a divide between siblings, essentially forcing them to compete in order to reach their parents' expectations. The cloned child might develop a sense of entitlement because he or she is exactly as the parent. The clone would be faced with higher expectations because their life can essentially be viewed as being a second chance for the individual that cloned themselves. This would lead to a less diverse society because reproductive cloning will remove the need for originality. The clone would be created in order to complete a singular purpose. In the video, the speaker will describe a few problems that only cloned individuals will experience. Please click the video.
Another question surrounding reproductive cloning is, what are the ethics around the costs of cloning? One of the ethical issues regarding reproductive cloning is the accessibility people have to it. Human cloning and cloning in general is a very expensive procedure which would be exclusive to the affluent people who can pay for it. An Italian scientist named Panos Zavos estimated that costs of human cloning could be around $50,000. He also estimated that they might drop to the price range of $20,000 to $10,000, similar to the cost of in vitro fertilization. However, another estimation made by author Brian Alexander is that human cloning could range anywhere from $200,000 to $2 million. Though these estimations are vastly different numbers, they are still very expensive prices that only a selective amount of affluent people would be able to pay. Infertile couples are a large demographic of people who would be seeking the cloning process. That being said, since it is such an expensive procedure, a lot of couples might not be able to pay for it. This highlights one of the ethical problems of human cloning, because only a select group of wealthy people would be able to pay for this opportunity, leaving behind the large, less fortunate group of people who desperately want or perhaps need this process to have a child. Another question that aids more of the ethical issues surrounding human cloning to arise is it worth the cost? The idea of human cloning comes with many pros and cons to it. A large benefit from this process is that it provides another option for couples who cannot have children. However, a new experimental procedure like this comes with some risks. One of them is that the tampering of genes could be dangerous for the individual undergoing the process. Since human cloning is a newer and more unknown procedure, it could have even more potential risks than more common surgeries. Another benefit from cloning would be that it could aid genetic research towards a better understanding of certain diseases, or just the human body in general. It could potentially help provide treatment for some diseases, and it might also help to create more advanced clone tissue that could possibly help prevent some diseases. Another downside of this procedure is something that healthresearchfunding.org pointed out. The website noted that human cloning could come with a sped-up aging process. A quote from the website states, "Because an older cell is often being used to create a human clone, there is the possibility that this imprinted age could be placed on the growing embryo." This quote also raises the possibility that, since premature aging is possible, perhaps even premature death could be possible. Since we don't know the exact science behind human cloning, it could be considered an unethical decision to provide a procedure to people who might suffer from the outcome.
The topic I am exploring is public opinion on reproductive cloning and contrasting it to public opinion on other topics under the umbrella of gene editing. Reproductive cloning is publicly condemned as the majority of the American population believe it is unethical. It is the least favorite subject when discussing gene editing. People even believe in wasting embryos just for testing rather than attempting cloning. Conversely, the public favors the science of cloning for disease prevention by over 65% every time. Their opposition roots from the public misconceptions they hear spread by the media. These fallacies are based on science fiction. This is often the case of public fear specific of scientific innovations such as the fright that came out of the novel Frankenstein. There is also a fear of limited access because of its cost. 58% of Americans believe that it is very likely that reproductive cloning would only be available to the wealthy, meaning no one else would have access to it, because they couldn't afford it at such a high cost. There is also the opposite fear that if someone were to discover it first and use it for wrong purposes, they could wreak havoc with super soldiers, which could be cloned based on genetic specimen. There should be more open-mindedness on the topic because of the possibilities it can bring. 87% of Americans agree that cloning should be used to lead to other medical advancements, and reproductive cloning can definitely bring about advantages for the medical field. Many groups of society would benefit because of their inability to have a child. Such groups would be same-sex couples, a couple who has a parent with a hereditary disease, a couple which has one infertile parent, and loved ones who pass but can have their reproductive cells frozen in time to reproduce them through a clone.